So the Pittsburgh Steelers will be taking on the Jacksonville Jaguars in Week 2 of the NFL preseason. The Pittsburgh Steelers just came off a Week 1 preseason victory versus the Seattle Seahawks, and the Jacksonville Jaguars are coming off a loss to the Cleveland Browns at home. And we're going to start by talking about the Pittsburgh Steelers. I'm going to start on the offensive side of the ball. The Steelers had two huge losses on the offensive side of the ball this offseason, obviously with quarterback and future Hall of Famer Big Ben Roethlisberger, and obviously wide receiver Juju Smith-Schuster going over to the Kansas City Chiefs. This Pittsburgh Steelers offense is still immensely talented, and there's a lot of things I like there. I think that the offensive line is most certainly still a question mark for this team, but I trust Mike Tomlin, a head coach and one of the best head coaches in the game. He's been a model of consistency. This guy has never finished under the record of 500 or worse. Mike Tomlin is that guy. And while there is still some questions and concerns about this Pittsburgh Steelers offense, Mitchell Trubisky has been named the starting quarterback for the Pittsburgh Steelers as of right now. And Mitchell Trubisky, I think, is a guy who gets a lot of hate and gets a bad rep around the league. I think he's a very solid young quarterback. He definitely brings a different dynamic and element to the quarterback position that a guy like Big Ben Roethlisberger just couldn't do late in his career. And while the Steelers are not banking on Mitchell Trubisky to be their long-term future quarterback like Kenny Pickett, who we'll get into in a second, Mitchell Trubisky is a very solid player, and I think that he has still a lot of high upside in this league, and a guy, like I said, who just gets a bad rep. But now with quarterback Kenny Pickett, who the Steelers took with the 20th overall pick, he really struggled to get anything going in his rookie training camp. This guy was doing horrible from all the reports in training camp, but as this last week has kind of progressed, Kenny Pickett's really been stepping it up, and there's been a lot more progression that you've seen and you want to see out of your future quarterback for the Pittsburgh Steelers moving forward. He didn't do very good in a lot of these first team reps when he was getting them early on in training camp, but he has picked it up and done a lot better, especially in the 2-minute drills. Minka Fitzpatrick has said some good things about him from the reports that I've seen. And then obviously with a guy like Mason Rudolph, I don't think he's a guy that anybody believes in. But when you look at the other positions on the offensive side of the ball, like I said, the offensive line is still a question mark. The running back position, you've got Najee Harris, one of the best young backs in the game. But then you look at the receiving core, and especially with tight end Pat Freiermuth, who had 7 touchdowns in his rookie season last year, tight end out of Penn State. He was a guy I was super high on, and I think he is due for a breakout season for the Pittsburgh Steelers, and he's going to be a fantasy snag for all of you fantasy football heads out there, including myself. But with the wide receiver position for the Pittsburgh Steelers, I mean, this wide receiver core is deep. If George Pickens, rookie out of Georgia, can be what everyone expects him to be and what he's been doing in training camp so far, from all the reports, he's going to be the future wide receiver number 1 for this Pittsburgh Steelers team. They were able to get him in the second round out of Georgia. But then you look at guys like Deontay Johnson, Chase Claypool, Miles Boykin, Calvin Austin III is a guy who I was extremely high on coming out of the draft out of Memphis. I wanted the Jaguars to go and grab him in the 3rd round, but he ended up falling to Pittsburgh, and what a steal for the Pittsburgh Steelers. I know he hasn't taken a snap yet because he had that minor foot injury. He just got out of his boot, and Calvin Austin, I hope everything's okay with you, man. I know you're not going to be playing in Week 2 versus the Jaguars, man, but this guy's an explosive young wide receiver who's going to be able to do a lot of different things for this Pittsburgh Steelers offense. Then when you talk about the Pittsburgh Steelers on defense, this is obviously the backbone of this team. That's always been the Steelers' calling card, is Steel City and this defense. Obviously, Mike Tomlin has a huge role into why this Pittsburgh Steelers defense has been so great for historically a long time. But you look at guys like Cameron Hayward, Devin Bush, Miles Jack, former Jaguars linebacker, and I hope he gets a huge standing ovation here in Jacksonville this Saturday when we play in Week 2. You look over in the secondary, Minka Fitzpatrick's one of the best in the game, and obviously TJ Watt is the best edge rusher in the game. But it's going to be exciting to see what the Steelers do with this first team offense and defense, probably a little bit through the first quarter and maybe a little bit into the second quarter as well too versus the Jaguars. Speaking of the Jags, let's get into the Jaguars now. Now, before I get into the Jaguars offense, I will say that Doug Peterson did say that Devin Lloyd, cornerback Darius Williams, and James Robinson will not play in this week's game, still due to injury. James Robinson, Devin Lloyd, and Darius Williams, all these guys had different injuries, and they're ramping these guys back up slowly. No need to rush these guys back. Obviously, James Robinson coming off that Achilles injury. He's been getting a lot more work in training camp, slowly, gradually getting back into the groove of things. They're still being cautious with Devin Lloyd and his hamstring issue. And then when you move on to a guy like Darius Williams, who had that shoulder surgery this offseason as well too, still being cautious with these guys, but I do believe that by Week 1, these guys should be able to go. But getting into the Jaguars offense, I saw a lot of great things out of the Jaguars offense versus the Cleveland Browns in week 1. And I'm not going to sit here and overreact to preseason, but there was a lot of flashes. It looked like Trevor Lawrence was a lot more comfortable in this offensive system. Travis Etienne showed more explosiveness in 1 or 2 runs than James Robinson ever did, strictly off the fact that they're just different running backs, thunder and lightning. I don't need to get into that, but Travis Etienne looked great. And when you look at guys like Snoop Connor, he took a lot of the load as well too, and I expect that out of him too while James Robinson is still absent. I loved what the backfield was doing. I love what Trevor Lawrence was able to do, being poised and stayed in the pocket. Zay Jones has been the star the last couple of weeks of training camp, making a lot of plays. Big play Zay. I'm excited to see what he does, and hopefully he can continue to build on this momentum with that chemistry that he's built with Trevor Lawrence. He's definitely been an underrated free agent pickup that I don't think has gotten talked about enough, and I'm going to give him his praise here real quick. But you still look at the wide receiver room. Laviska Shenault should be back this week, probably getting some reps. Doug Peterson didn't say anything about Jamal Agnew, so I expect Jamal Agnew to go in there and get some reps this week. It would be huge to get him back because he's a huge piece to this offense and what this Jacksonville Jaguars team can do, because I love Jamal Agnew. Me and all my homies, we love Jamal Agnew. And you look overall at what the Jaguars have been doing: Zay Jones, Laquan Treadwell, Laviska Shenault, Marvin Jones Jr., Jamal Agnew. Still no Christian Kirk yet. I hope he gets some snaps as well too, but you don't want to rush any of these guys back. I expect a lot of great things from this Jaguars offense still. Then moving on to the Jaguars defensive side of the ball, the Jaguars did cut nose tackle Malcolm Brown, who had a career high 57 tackles last season, but that's going to open up the doors for a guy like Jay Tufele and Devon Hamilton have a bigger role at that nose tackle position alongside Fadu Kasi coming over from the New York Jets. The Jaguars did make a statement, and Doug Peterson did, in regards to what Mike Caldwell is going to be doing in this base 3-4 defense that we'll be running. He did say that Trayvon Walker and both Josh Allen, our outside linebackers, will continue to be on the left and right side, and these guys are not going to be moving much. I think that's a great idea because it really allows a guy like Trayvon Walker to flourish and learn one position, something he wasn't really able to do at Georgia. Use his strength and athleticism to his advantage, getting around left tackles. And, you know, whether he's standing up, he's in a 3 technique, whatever it may be, Trayvon Walker is going to be able to get after the pass rusher, and I think that's something that we've seen a lot of so far out of training camp and through a little bit of the preseason. That's going to be great for him. You look at the linebacker position as a whole, the Jaguars did a great job up front. Chad Muma has really shown some flashes so far throughout this preseason. And the Jaguars secondary, man, you can't say enough about what Rayshawn Jenkins, Andre Cisco, Tyson Campbell especially, and Shaq Griffin have done so far throughout training camp. You've seen it throughout the preseason. This Jaguars defense, this secondary, the front 7, you name it. When they get out there and they're on that field, it's going to be a top 10 defense in football this season. I've been preaching it. If you want the link to the video, I will put the link up above. But I'm really excited for this matchup because you're going to see a lot more of the ones out there on both sides of the ball. Intrigued to see how Kenny Pickett especially does versus this Jaguars defense, regardless if he's playing against the 1s or the 2s. And I'm excited to see how Trevor Lawrence and his offense continues to progress heading into week 2. But Steelers fans and Jaguar fans, I want to hear your thoughts in the comments down below. What are you guys expecting out of this game? And also, what are some matchups that you guys are looking forward to? I want to hear your thoughts in the comments down below. And before I do end today's video, I want to say I do apologize for the content being a little bit slow. Obviously, this is a new setup. I'm in my apartment officially. I'm moved into Orlando, so it's just been really busy, you know, taking the time to, you know, get down here, move everything, kind of get settled in as well too. I start classes at UCF this Monday, so you know, everything's still kind of an adjustment right now too, but I'm doing my best to provide some great content for y'all. So thank y'all for being patient with me, man. I promise the ball's going to get rolling, and BJ Mafia is going to be right back on top of things sooner than later. And before I let y'all go, man, if you guys could drop me a like. It takes 1 second and it helps me in the channel out tremendously. And if you guys are new here, consider hitting that subscribe bell to stay tuned for more Jaguars and NBA content that I do here on YouTube. And make sure y'all go follow me on my socials, especially on Twitter. The link tree will be in the description down below. I'm active and I'm on there every single day. But Brett James, aka BJ, I'm out, y'all. Go Jags, baby. Peace.